Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Okay, so we are on chapter 10. We had a 2-week gap. So I'll summarize a little bit. We are on verse 16. But just to have a connection from the beginning of the chapter, just kind of in a few sentences so that we have a connection. So in this chapter, just like the before, chapter 7, 8, 9, also Bhagavan started to talk about his supreme nature. And in this one, he stresses that he's the very source of the entire creation. That's how he started. And also he said about that he's source of all our thoughts and emotions. So the substratum is that Bhagavan. And then he explained to Arjuna that one who is constantly contemplates upon the nature and who dedicate their life to him and talk about him, teach about him, listen about him, his glories, then Bhagavan, when he sees them striving sincerely, he gives them buddhi yoga. That verse was there. And that's a comprehension power or that final experience. Both are apply over here as a buddhi yoga. And then by his blessings, they gain the knowledge. And by that knowledge, all the darkness of ignorance is dispelled, which is in the heart. And then they come to realize that Supreme Brahman. So that's the whole process. So after listening to all this, Arjuna got very excited and he said, okay, now I want to do this too. So he did a praising of Bhagavan. You saw all those different words and he said, you are the Supreme Brahma, Pavitram, Vibhu, Ajam, Divyam, Shashvatam, Adi Deva, all those words he addressed Bhagavan as. And then what he wants to hear more glories of Bhagavan in detail. So, and then so the way he approaches Bhagavan is, see, whatever you say, I believe in it, because same thing was said by the Rishi Munis and all the Devatas. And then he mentioned some of the Rishis, Devarshi Narad and Asit and Deval and Vyas and all that. And then he also said, firstly he had said that Devas and Danavas don't recognize you in your essence, but also all Rishi Munis do, obviously. So then he says that you know yourself by yourself. So and there is a hidden meaning behind it, is to know God is to be God. And the example is how the river, when it enters the ocean, becomes the ocean. Something like that. So, and then the other part of it is that what does it mean that you know yourself by yourself? Is as long as we have this limited concept of our being, we will not know God. We have to give up all this identification. That's how we have to understand it. And then the example is very good one that about the dreaming, that as long as we are dreaming, we are not awake. We cannot be in both states. You have to give up one state to go to the other. So that's how it is. So same way we have to give up this our little ego in order to realize God. That is the whole meaning behind it. So for that, whatever he's saying, we have to do all that sadhana. We have to tune ourselves to that divinity. And so what Nikhilananji was explaining, it's like a radio, and olden days, abhi to khair sabhi log ek khali phone se sab kuch karte hain. But even in phone, you have to tune, put some proper thing, that's like tuning of the radio, and then that right music will come. Otherwise, if you don't want to hear some crazy music and if you go there, then it's our fault because we don't know how to tune it. So that's how it is. So divinity is within us only and all around us also. So that's another thing, that on one hand, they tell you to go inwards, in meditation and all that to come in touch with that divinity. But in Gita, they also says when you open your eyes, you should see divinity. That's the most important. Ye nahi ki, oh, Bhagwan is within me, but everything else is bad. No, not like that at all. So that's the whole idea about here, this chapter 10. So, and the other part of it is that how do I get there? By karma yoga, bhakti yoga, upasana, all the methods that they have said, jnana yoga, that we are tuning ourselves to that divinity. That's what we are doing. And then our teacher, in Houston, Darshana Ben used to tell us that when they say tuning to God, the people who sing and all that, they know about this. And we see it. Even if we don't sing, we see these things. जो लोग गाते हैं ना, वो पीछे एक तानपुरा बजाता रहता है, वो ऐसे से ट्रिंग ट्रिंग करता रहता है. सो वो उससे वो ट्यूनिंग प्रॉपर रहती है उनकी, उसका वो जॉब है. तो जैसे बोला, शी यूज्ड टू से तानपुरा चलते रहना चाहिए भगवान से कनेक्शन का. That's the whole idea, that you don't forget that who you are at the essence. So that's what tuning is. So basically, idea is that you can be doing whatever in the world your duties are, but our minds and hearts should be tuned to that divinity. And so what practice and all that we have to do? Another form of practice is seeing God everywhere in all objects and beings. This is what it is. In this chapter, it will teach us that in order for us to experience the divinity and to worship, we need to special vibhutis of God, or glories of God will help us to do that. So that's what Krishna Bhagavan is going to do in this chapter. And so what it is that वैसे तो Bhagavan is everywhere. We know, like in Chinmaya Mission, we say even if a kindergartner, they teach them, where is God? God is everywhere. That's why they do that one little trick also. They say, okay, take this apple and now eat it where nobody is seeing. Remember that whole drishtant? And then everybody कोई वहाँ जाके छुप के खा रहा है, कोई कहाँ, एक बच्चा आके बोला, I cannot eat this apple because God is watching. So that's what it is. This is what it is. But there are certain things that remind us more about Bhagwan. It's easier to see God in it. And it's something like, in this chapter is going to come, that all the rivers are great. All the rivers are, but कोई बोलेगा जो सबसे स्पेशल कौन सी है, हम लोग एक सेकंड में बोलेंगे इंडिया वाला गंगा जी. We don't even have to think. And people जिनको श्रद्धा है गंगा जी में, वो गंगा जी को देखते ही उनको कुछ को होने लगता है, like because oh my God, so many stories, so many people have do puja here, whatever you say, suddenly you get goosebumps for people who connect to it. So that's what it is. Special significance is there. And the same way that God is everywhere, but certain places are like temple. Why do we go to temple if God is everywhere? We all love to go because connection becomes easy over there. The murti is there, there's some puja is going on, everybody's bowing their head, whichever, or some special places are there and charged with some kind of energy, so many things. So the temple, it becomes easier. So that's how we have to see. Those are called vibhutis. Special places and special objects are called vibhutis. So that's what Arjuna wants to know more about the vibhutis. So he requests Bhagwan. So with that background, let's go to the verse. It will be easier now to understand what Arjuna is asking. It's verse 16. Vaktum arhasya sheshena divyahyatma vibhutayah yabhir vibhutir lokan imastvam vapyatisthasi. Vaktum, to tell. Arhasi, you should tell. Asheshena, without any reserve. सब कुछ बता दो मुझे. Please don't hold back anything. बोलते ना कि like the person you love, you don't want any secrets. Tell me everything. As though we have a right. So say, tell me everything. And this shesh and kuch shesh nahi bachna chahiye. Divya is, we know, divine. He is indeed Atma Vibhutaya, your glories. That's what it means. Yabhi, by which, by your glories, Vibhuti bhi, your glories, by which and vibhuti is again your glories, lokan, worlds, imam, these, tvam, you, vapya, having pervaded, tishtati, exist. Means you आपकी जो ग्लोरी है उससे आप पूरा संसार व्याप्त है. So I want to know about that, these glories, by which you exist. Means he knows that ये भगवान ही है, something like that. Because भगवान ने बोल दिया ना कि I am everywhere, everything is in me and I am everywhere, like that. And now he's trying to grasp this concept more, but in that process, it's like an open eye meditation Bhagwan is teaching us. That's how I'm looking at this, So let's see a little more expansion of it with some more things so we understand. So Arjuna is saying that you need to tell me completely everything without leaving anything behind, And the word asheshena, like I said, without holding anything back. Very important word in this verse. And then divya atma vibhutaya, your divine vibhutis. Because like we said, everything is Bhagwan only, but certain things have more divine expression. That's how we have to look at it. And then Nikhilanandji explained this word vibhuti in another way, which was very nice. Bhagwan ka vistar, one becoming many, so unka vistar hai ye vibhuti. And because we know that God is one, but he appears as many. So, वैसे तो देखा जाए the whole expression is Bhagwan's, the whole world is Bhagwan's expression and its whole world is vibhuti. But within, like we said, within the world, there are certain things that remind us of that divinity more intensely. So, that's what these are called vibhutis. So, he gave a very good example, Nikhilanandji, saying it's something like a country. The whole country is ours. And there are many states in it. But if you pick each state, there's a special things in there that we brag about. And if कोई भी आएगा तो let's, जैसे कोई समझो San Diego में भी आ गया, तो there are about 10 things that we will definitely take them. Take them to downtown and take them to Point Loma and take them to La Jolla Cove. See what I'm saying? Those are vibhutis of that's how we have to understand it. Or we can say Arizona, then suddenly all those national parks come in our eyes immediately. Those are vibhutis of that, great places that we just feel so great about it, and it represents that state. Like that we have to understand. Or in India, pink city. Moment somebody said pink city, it's Jaipur, because all the buildings are pink. So that's there, it's vibhuti. Or Goa, beaches. It's like all the trees, mountain, people, everything is Goa who live there. But the special significance of the beaches, they are so beautiful. And Ganga Ji ka we said, so in this chapter itself, Bhagwan says Jahnavi, is the vibhuti, because it's a special thing, special place. So that's what he's saying, that Bhagwan is going to reveal many, many vibhutis, like a poetry in this, and it's really beautiful to read when we go, and if a lot of you may have already read it. And then, and why he's, Nikhilanandji said that actually this Arjuna is a great student, great devotee, and, good listener. Because he's going to say in the following verses, he's going to say, I can't have enough of your words. Jaise koi hota hai na, but I want to hear more. Tell me more. You want to just listen because they're such good orators, So he said, you are such a great orator. He's telling Krishna Bhagwan. Later on he'll say. So, and then another angle, I thought this was interesting what Nikhilanandji mentioned. He's saying that if you love somebody, you want to know everything about them. So you can't have enough. So that's what it is. So that's why Arjuna, he loves Lord Krishna and he wants to know everything what he's about. And of course, God here. And then the way he says the sentences in this verse, that tell me about those vibhutis by which you pervade this entire world and exist in this world. So that's the words he uses in his own language. And then what Nikhilanandji said, hey, actually, if you think about it, Bhagwan ne to pehle hi bol diya ki I pervade this world, and what is he asking, So then he gave another example, which was very good one, and you will relate to this. that suppose there is a king, or say a very rich person, okay, and he invites you to his house, a rich person, and he says, okay, and then he shows all his vistar, his house. He takes you on a tour of this house. His entire house is his glory, okay? Vibhuti. And then he will show some special things. Oh, these are the special photographs. I did this, I did that, or he will show some special paintings that he has acquired from somewhere, or some special objects that he has collected. Hey, this is my vintage car, I acquired it from here, or this is a cup that the president gave me. Anything it can be. And he's showing you special things. So these are the vibhutis. We're trying to understand vibhuti from all angles, what it means. Glorious things that I have, And then, I don't know how many of you have heard of Purush Suktam. It's a very popular part of scripture when this Virat Roop of Bhagwan is kind of explained in Purush Suktam. So that's where it says that there's one very important point that Bhagwan is going to mention at the end of this chapter, but I thought we'll bring that up. And he says that in the Purush Suktam also it says the same thing, that the whole world is a mahima of Bhagwan or glory of Bhagwan, but Bhagwan is much more than that. So we cannot, sometimes we get stuck about this idea, everything is God, so then you limit God within this universe. See what I'm trying to say? As though God is not beyond, but that's not true. Because Bhagwan says in the end that the entire universe is just a very small part of me. He's much more than that. So that is such an important point. And in the worldly example, you will understand this once I tell you. Suppose there is an artist, very famous, good, great artist. He creates so many paintings. So he may have created, say, 100 paintings. So all the paintings are his glories, right? But the paintings are just a limited thing of that man. That artist is much more than that painting, because he can create anytime, anything, right? He's much more. So that's what it is. So this whole universe is like a signature of God. He manifested it, but he is much more than that. So that's another point that we should grasp about that. So and then this is what Nikhilananji brought a very important point. On one hand, when we see some glorious things, we can see God very easily in it, like I said, like a Gangaji or, some Himalaya and all that. Say, oh yes, it's so magnificent, it's God. But you have to create a drishti to see God everywhere. And he said, even if you suppose you pick a flower तो अभी यहाँ पर spring चालू हो गया है, तो San Diego में तो हर जगह flower ही flower है, right? You just pick one flower and take one petal of it and just think about it. And it was कितनी soft, कितना beautiful color. So आया तो जमीन से ही है, मगर that's the glory. Come out like this, and so you should create a drishti to see God's glory everywhere. That's the whole idea. But you have to start with something glorious. It's much easier. And I was thinking of that one example, that suppose there is some fellow from a village. This is a hypothetical example. These days, village, maybe internet वगैरह चला गया, they are very smart. So much smart. Long time ago when there was no internet. So let's go back 100 years. Okay, this fellow, वो दिया जला के काम करते थे. They had no idea about electricity. And then one day they were introduced and they'll say, oh, this bulb is there and the electricity goes to it. Say, what are you talking about? I don't understand. This is the guy will say. So then there is a big storm and, you see this thunderstorm and lightning in the sky. And then you say, look, that is electricity. Isko ek second mein samajh mein aa jayega because it's so glorious. You see the difference? That's the whole idea about telling the glory. Easier to see God in the glories. That's what it is. And then anyway, about the flower, he said another important thing that, how to see, because I wanted to bring that point up, that I was talking about, you look at one petal and then you see the glory of God. And then he was saying, this flower even blooms in some jungle, that nobody's even seeing it's blooming and spreading its fragrance. So that's another aspect of Bhagwan's glory, that, it's everywhere. It doesn't matter that it has to be in front of my eyes only, So everything is Bhagwan's glory. And he said, this is what means tuning to God, is seeing his glory everywhere, And then he gave some examples that we all know about. Everybody talks about the gopis of Lord Krishna, that how gopis, unko har jagah Krishna hi dikhai dete the. And then there's the whole story is there about that Uddhav comes and he says, apna man Bhagwan mein lagao. He told, meditation सिखा रहे थे उनको, और गोपियों ने बोला कौन सा मन, हमारे पास तो है नहीं, हमारा तो मन वो ले गया, कृष्णा ले गया. See what I'm saying? That's what it is. So that's called seeing. For them, everything reminded them of Lord Krishna. I thought that was a beautiful example that he gave. So, and he's saying that even like the Tirth Sthan are the similar thing, that you have Vrindavan, everything is over there reminds you of Lord Krishna. And then people will say, I'm sure a lot of us have been there, they will show different leelas Bhagwan did, or he touched this place, he sat on this tree, he did all that, and so that's the vision we have to develop to see God everywhere. So that's in nutshell. This is a very simple verse in some ways, that Arjuna says to Lord that please tell me about your glories in detail, and by which you exist in this world and remain in this world. So please tell me. Okay? And then next verse, he's going to give little more explanation why he wants to know this. So that will help us more. So even though it is simple, but there were many points, right? About trying to understand what Vibhuti is. Any question about what the Vibhuti is, what we are going to get into soon? Any question, comment? Anybody wants to add anything? Who wants to read? Any volunteers? Sushil ji?
You should indeed, without reserve, tell me your divine glories, by which you exist, pervading all these words. There's a directness in the words of Arjuna, clearly bringing out the rough soldier in him, ever impatient with any opposition that he might meet, be it in his physical outer life, or in his inner mental plane, or in his deep intellectual fields. He wants to know what exactly are the God's divine manifestations in the multiple world of plurality. The prince is convinced that the Lord is the essence without which the multiple world cannot exist. At the same time, when he looks out into the world through his familiar instruments of intellect, mind and body, he recognizes nothing but ideas, feelings, and objects, and they are anything but divine.
So Swamiji has taken a very interesting approach in this. Firstly, because he said कि मेरे को without reserve सब कुछ बताओ. So he's getting very impatient, because उसको fully 100% grasp नहीं हुआ है अभी तक. Why? Because we have the same problem. Say, go see, Bhagwan in the world. समझो, बोला. And when we go out, तो ये problem है, वो problem है, somebody's acting nasty, somebody's doing this, news खोला तो सब negative ही आ रहा है, तो कहाँ से भगवान देखे, So that, उसको वैसा problem, simply speaking. And because it said that when you go outside, and you have to, instruments are intellect, body, mind, and intellect, and they are ideas, feeling, objects, and so many times they don't look divine. So then how do I see? That's his problem, which is our problem too, And then भगवान ने बोला ना कि मैं सब जगह हूँ, मुझ में सारा संसार है. He wants more explanation about it. That's what it is.
When a building is illuminated on a ceremonial occasion, we see many points of lights emanating from the innumerable colored bulbs of varying intensity. But when we are told that all of them are sustained and fed by the same electricity, it would be quite natural for the ignorant to demand to him the electricity in each of its manifestations. Let me read that again. But when we are told that all of them are sustained and fed by the same electricity, it would be quite natural for the ignorant to demand to him the electricity in each of its manifestations. As the cosmic man, Ishvara, the Lord is both transcendental vibhuti and immanent yoga in all names and forms that constitute samsara. This can be felt by a heart of faith, but cannot be comprehended by a dense, though sharp intellect. Naturally, Arjuna asked Krishna for an exhaustive discourse upon your cosmic glory, vibhuti, by which filling all these words, you exist. Arjuna, being a man of action and supremely practical minded, wanted to gather sufficient data for his intellect to ponder over, classify, and understand it.
So, yeah, many different things in this. So now, the way example he gave is this, that suppose if there are different, one building is illuminated by many different bulbs and they have a different intensity. That's the example he gave. And suppose this person from the village that we were talking about who doesn't know what electricity is. So he comes and says, oh, this building looks so nice. देखो इतने सारे, मैं तो एक दो दिया जलाता हूँ, यहाँ तो हजारों बल्ब जल रहे हैं, कितना फैसिनेट हो जाएगा, राइट? फिर वो पूछेगा कि ये सब कैसे हुआ, तो बोला कि same electricity is in all of them and they are illuminated. He will not get confused. He won't know what it is, right? Arjun का obviously थोड़ा सा हाल ऐसा ही था. This is just an example that Bhagwan is saying, I am everywhere. How? That's what he's like. His intellect has to grasp. And then these two words are very important. Bhagwan is transcendental and eminent. On one hand, he pervades everything, but is untouched by the world. That's what they're trying to say. And the best example for that is eminent and transcendental is the sunlight. When the sun comes out, whole city or the whole whatever country gets flooded with light, right? But the light is pure. Nobody can contaminate it. Whether the light touches the gutter or it touches Gangaji or, a holy temple or some kind of bar or something, it's going to be the same, right? That's what that transcendental means. And eminent means without which you cannot do. Sunlight is a little bit good example because if it's completely dark, whether temple or a bar, both cannot function. So because nobody can do anything. So that's how we have to understand transcendental and eminent. And it's called vibhuti and yoga. So yoga and vibhuti, these words go kind of together as a pair. That's what Bhagwan is. So that's what he's talking about. That, and then the other important point that Swamiji brought out, too much logic, you won't be able to understand this transcendental and you need he calls it dense but sharp intellect fails over there. जो लोग ज़्यादा खाली लॉजिक में चले जाते हैं ना, पूरे नास्तिक बन जाते हैं because उनको वो आंसर नहीं मिलता है. There is same thing like we were discussing. Hey, what is the cause of God? भगवान कहाँ से आया? हम लोग का intellect नहीं समझ पाएगा because then that's where they came up with the answer that, hey, causeless cause. They still, the saints and sages are very smart. They say the causeless cause बोल दिया. And then we gave example of that circle. Hey, where is the starting point and ending point? Once you draw a circle, you can't even find out. So circular thinking होनी चाहिए इसके लिए. So this is how we have to understand this. And then you need little faith or little shraddha that, hey, all the saints and sages are saying, I have to try to grasp it. And then that's why he's asking that, show me, this is another angle to grasp the whole concept, is going through this vibhuti. And I think it's a fun way to see God everywhere. And then the interesting thing is, when he does ask this question to, he takes 3 verses to ask the question because he wants, explain himself fully to Krishna Bhagwan what he's asking. And when Krishna Bhagwan answers, he says, Hanta. Hanta is like, alas, like, usse kaise samjhaun? Krishna Bhagwan bol rahe hai wo. Because the idea is this. And, somewhere else, I think Swamiji had explained this in his maybe one of the discourses in the video. It's somebody asking you about electricity. Show me electricity in everything. It's maybe dikhao electricity. It's maybe kaise dikhao? Because there are hundreds of things that can come before. There are now hundreds of equipments can come later. All will be running by electricity. See what I'm saying? That's why. And then fir bhi Bhagwan is very compassionate. He did tell him the vibhutis, and in the end he says, this is just a small sample. There is no end to my vibhutis. Because I think there is one verse somewhere, maybe Kalidas ne likha hai ya mujhe nahi pata kya, कि बोले भगवान की महिमा अगर कोई गाना चाहे ना, तो तुम सारा समुद्र ले लो और उसमें सारा वो क्या बोलते हैं, पुराने ज़माने में स्याही बनाते थे ना वो लोग, कि कुछ काला डाल के एंड यू मेक इट, यू हैव दिस इंक से हम लिखते थे. तो बोले सारे पेड़ ले लो पूरी दुनिया के और उसका कागज़ बना दो, किताबें बना दो सारे पेड़ों की, और पूरा समुद्र ले लो, उसकी स्याही बना लो और लिखने लगो, भगवान की ग्लोरी खत्म नहीं होगी. मतलब एक भाव दिया है. It's like, I tell you in a very simple example. Suppose there is a creative artist. तो बोलो कि where does his creativity end? जब तक वो जिंदा है उसकी creativity चालू रहेगी. He can create, continuously create. There's no limit to it. See what I'm saying? That's why Bhagwan's glory, it cannot end. Because even if in today's world, there are new species that come up, right? Sometimes they think, I know everything. Then they go under the ocean and say, my God, they found a creature that they never found before. Things like that. And then we think, itna advance ho gaya electronic. Sure, after a few months, something new comes. Right? Just think about it. There's no limit. And वो बोलते हैं हमको इधर मून पे जाना है, तो मून पे पहुंच गए, नहीं अभी हमको मार्स पे जाना है, फिर मार्स के बाद और आगे कहाँ पर लिमिट है? Even if you worldly think, you think there is no. So that's why it's like beyond our imagination. All these things are just like endless. इसीलिए बोल दिया कि भाई infinite. Infinity. We cannot. It's hard to grasp infinity, right? But another way, it is very simple to grasp if you think about it. They say that present moment is infinite. It never ends. The present moment, every time it's a present moment. Think about it. So those are it's like a very, vichar karna padega iske upar, the whole thing ke upar. That's what it is. Any question, comment? There's one more sentence, right?
Yeah. Is it merely an intellectual curiosity in Arjuna that made him ask this question, not listen?
So, that's the next verse. We will do it next time. And basically, he's going to say that, how shall I ever meditating know you? Because he just wants to know a little more. So, but anyway, we'll try to learn what Bhagwan is going to speak. It's like foundation of this chapter. What more is coming in here. But at least I hope we understood the concept, why he's asking. And in a very simple word, some saints and sages says chapter 10 is open eye meditation. When I open my eyes and go in the world, how do I see Bhagwan? Is giving you beautiful tips, Anything that's glorious, beautiful, it is an expression of him. comments from you guys.
मुझे ये जो पहला पैराग्राफ है उसकी जो लास्ट लाइन है, he recognizes nothing but ideas, feelings and objects, and they are anything but divine. Is it because of the intellect?
I think this is kind of all our experiences. It's a hidden thing, the substratum is a hidden thing. Same thing like if the example of that villager that I was talking about is a very good one. If he doesn't know what electricity is, and if you tell him that this computer works on electricity, he cannot grasp it that easily. He has to first understand the electricity, something like that. So what you see is not what is behind it and what it is made up of. It's like when we eat roti, it looks different than the atta, what is made up of. See what I'm saying? So, in fact, this is kind of an interesting thing that somebody was saying. If the children knew, very small children, they love animals. If they knew where the animal, what they eat is where it's coming from, they would not eat 99%, because they think the animal comes in a package. So, not animal, sorry. The meat comes in a package from the store. And by the time they get so used to it, then they become insensitive to it. But that's what it is. That what you see is really not what it is. That's what they're trying to say. Does it make sense? That every day we are dealing with these ideas, feeling as objects, but they don't look divine, meaning what? The consciousness behind it. That's what they mean. The consciousness is divine, Sat Chit Anand. And even our own life, if we are made up of Anand, then why most of the time we are like Dukhi Ram? Hey, we are made up of Anand. It should be. That's what it is. So through this journey, we are trying to go to the bottom of the whole thing. And that's what Taittiriya Upanishad is trying to do. Peel the layers. You are not this, you are not this, and then taking us to that Anand. Any other question? Did it answer that question, what he's saying, Anilji?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Falguni ji.
Yeah, Umaji, it's very interesting. Like right now, the quantum mechanism and quantum thing is just like connecting it with spirituality. And if you try to read it, it just takes you again into all the confusion. But they're giving really good examples. And one sentence which I liked, it says, some propose that quantum phenomena like entanglement and superposition might play a role in consciousness, suggesting that consciousness is not merely a product of the brain, but a fundamental aspect of reality.
Yes.
You really do have to read this few times, but basically scientific community is still now going towards the consciousness and spirituality and saying the life is not linear, and also it's all connecting. Science and the spirituality, which is very interesting.
I found that same like you. The whole thing started about maybe 20 some years ago, but it's catching momentum now. And many of the major universities, the best ones, including Harvard and all, they have the consciousness studies now. And they call it, I think if anybody wants to learn more about this, what you're talking about, is Sarva Priyanandji. He has many lectures about it with many scientists, and they have a lot of debates and this and that. And it's the...
Who is this?
Sarva Priyanandji is one of the YouTube, he's very popular, and he's from the Vedanta Society. And I'll send you some links. He has a lot of he knows Western science as well as the Eastern, and he bridges the gap, and he interviews, and he has together he has given many sessions with many great scientists current scientists. So it's very, very interesting, because it looks like you are interested in that subject, and I am too. I don't understand quantum physics, but little bit I'm getting the hang of it, and they call it the hard problem of consciousness, HARD, because they cannot solve it. All the time up to certain point in the Western world, they thought consciousness is a product of the brain. And Vedanta has been saying for, thousands of years that consciousness is primary. Everything else came. Now they are forced to accept that theory because they cannot explain. Because now with all these social media and all that, the near-death experience people and all that, so many hundreds of incidents where the doctors, they said this fellow is in coma and the guy can see everything. And he comes back and he says, you were doing this to me, blah, blah, blah. This room was like this. How did you know? And there are a couple of very famous books. There is a Harvard, I don't know how many of you have, I forgot his name now. He's still there. He's a Harvard professor and he's a neurosurgeon. Means so advanced in the science, right? He was a complete Gnostic. And he had some kind of something happened to him in the brain. Very serious, some infection. And he went into coma and he experienced this other realm. And then he came back and he wrote a book and in the beginning, his colleagues shunned him, but he didn't care. He told that this was so real. So they are forced to believe because these credible people are coming in. And that famous book about Anita Murjani also. That proves, in fact, when you read these, you hear these experiences of people say, hey, that's what Krishna Bhagwan is saying to Arjuna,
Yes, yeah.
So it is like, hey, now it's been proven by other people in today's world. I watch a lot of those programs and a lot of those interviews of people.
I know.
So it's very interesting.
Yeah, the science and spirituality.
The gap is
discussed now. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, gap is shortening now of that. Yeah, any other point? Okay, so we can close Bhagavad Gita if there is no other question. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhya mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.